being single and dating in the church, and that ended in this book. And that's why I'm here in your Generous Love series to talk about what that looks like in the church. And I think actually this is less of a sort of how to be single and dating. And we'll talk a bit about those bits and pieces, but more an invitation for us as church community to generously love those who are in that stage of their lives. So we've got a Bible verse, which is, it's different from the morning. Fun. Oh, no, but it's back. That's how it was in the morning. Right, so this is 1 Corinthians 7. This is Paul's letter to the Corinthians. And we're going to read verses 7 to 9 and then 32 to 35. So I wish that all of you were as I am, but each of you has your own gift from God. One has this gift, another has that. Now, to the unmarried and the widows, I say, it is good for them to stay unmarried as I do. But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. And then skipping ahead to 32, I would like you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how he can please the Lord. But a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife. And his interests are divided. An unmarried woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affairs. Her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman is concerned about the affairs of this world, how she can please her husband. So this is quite a radical sort of reflection. Well, I don't know how radical it was at the time, but it certainly is in our culture. Because we've adopted this feeling, right, that to be married is to level up, is to upgrade, and that people who are single are waiting and working towards being married. And here Paul's going, absolutely not. There is so much merit to choosing to stay single or embracing the time that you are single and investing it in the Lord, right? But I think if we're honest, there are plenty of single people who feel like they'll be able to do more for God once they're married, once they have that thing ticked off their list, right? I've just not got the headspace to do as much as I would want to for the kingdom, because first I've got to get myself a husband or a wife or a partner. But once that's ticked off, once that huge burden that is weighing down on me is over, then I'm free, then all my problems are solved, and that's when I can really get going being helpful. So it's not the Bible that says that being single is a less significant, less valuable relationship status to being married. So why is it that so many of us have got the vibe? No one's standing I assume no one's standing from the front and saying it either, but it's just this sort of undercurrent, this felt thing, right? So, oh gosh, I forgot it was Valentine's Day this week. Anyone enjoy that? No, me neither. No, joking. One very happy gentleman over there. I had it in my notes, didn't even mention it this morning. Sorry about that. So I want to talk about what it looks like to be single and dating in the church. And actually, I heard a different speaker do exactly this talk at a different church 2 weeks ago. And I was there with my notebook, and the first thing he did was give the most spectacular gospel message. And I felt really convicted that I go straight into the practicalities and I skip over, what we actually ultimately all need, right? And that is that we have a model of perfect love. There is no one on this earth who will ever love you as well as Jesus. And if you're not quite sure about that, or that feels a bit weird to you, or you get it in theory but you just don't feel it in your heart, then I would really invite you to speak to people about that, speak to the leadership, get some prayer about that, and let's work that out. Because that is the model from which we can base our earthly relationships. We're always going to get it wrong. We're not Jesus. But we are well on our way if we understand the love we are offered and if we offer love back. So Jesus died for us. He died so that we could live life to its fullest and that we wouldn't die. You know, I was going to say suffer in death. That's actually not the promise. But that we would have eternal life, right? That is such a phenomenal gift. So yes, it's super important for us to remember that no matter what our relationship status is, we have access to an experience of perfect love. The issue with that, though, and there's no issue with that, that is legit, we're the ones who create the issue with it, is that sometimes you can be speaking to a single person who is struggling in their faith, perhaps because of their relationship status, who's been praying about their relationship status for years. They want support. They want to explain to you how that feels for them. And then you can go in with but you're loved by Jesus, which is absolutely right, biblically, but is it the right time? And is that the right response? And I think that we can fall into this kind of Job's comforters situation by stating what is absolutely true, but without seeing the person in their pain and acknowledging it where they're at, right? So let's take a look at sort of church culture. And I say this as church with a capital C. I have not got a vendetta against this specific church. There may be things that you recognize, and perhaps that's from leadership, perhaps that's from the congregation. I would say that there's only so much leadership can do to dictate the culture, and we're all in this together. So if there's things that need changing, it starts with you, as well as, you know, good conversations and challenges to leadership. But actually, we can do far more than we realize from where we're sitting. So, church with a capital C, right? We've just got this impression that married is better than single. And I spoke to a lot of people when I was researching for the book about how they'd sort of pick this up. Often it can feel like it's the married people who are the most senior ones in the church. They're the ones who are invited into positions of authority. They appear to be the most valued. Often the PCC, here it would be PCC, sometimes it's the elders or whatever the sort of governing body of the church is. Often the people invited into those positions and encouraged into those positions are the ones who are married. I have actually checked in with the Lazelles, and they do have single people on your PCC. So don't worry, they're one step ahead of me there. But often that can be the way, and I think we all know churches where that is the sort of makeup of the leadership. Often churches very rarely invite single people to stand from the front and to speak. And that doesn't have to be about being single, but just to speak in general, it's rare to find a single person speaking from the front of church. Again, difficult one for me to prove because by nature of this invitation, this church doesn't fall into that category as I'm an unmarried woman standing on the stage. What about when the vicar, again, I apologize for this in the morning, when the vicar stands in his sermon and all of the references are around like, oh, well, you know, when the kids were really young, we did this and that. And then the anecdote about, well, when we were getting married or in our first year of marriage, I found, actually, when it comes to speaking, that's not relevant for many people in the congregation. Just as the golf and the football references, that's not me saying don't use them, but it is me saying, like, it's important that we all consider the context of the people we're speaking to and don't just assume that someone's lived experience is in line with ours. All of the events and the church calendar of the church is geared around the school calendar. Now, I like to worship in August, you know? We don't need to shut down the churches for a whole month because Jimmy's off school, you know? That's not relevant for all of us. I spoke to one woman, and this is in the book, and she wasn't invited to her church games night because in order to go, you needed to be on a team of 2, and she didn't have a partner to bring with her. And that is a really damaging message to be sending to somebody. This is a fun one, yeah. So a survey of American churches found that 50, a whole half of the churches surveyed ready for this one, will not let a single person lead a midweek group, right? So like your life group, your connect group, your home group, I don't know what you guys call it, but so had to be married in order to qualify to lead that. So that's Jesus out. That's a no to John the Baptist. Paul wants to head up a small group at that church. Come back when you've got a wife. Church planting is often, here's the bloke who's going to plant a church, and here's Mary, his wife, and off they go. How often do you see a group of friends? And actually, I will say, when I did the research for the book, never. More recently, I think, particularly I was at Focus last year, and they had really incredible sort of communities of people rather than just married people planting churches. So I think that people are being heard on that. But I have a friend who really feels that church planting is on her heart, and she says, if I get married, I'll look into it. And what a waste. What a waste of incredible gift and talent and resource for the kingdom, because she's never seen an unmarried person embark on that. And that's not to say that she should do it on her own, but a collection, a well-supported group of people with her heading it up is phenomenal. And then there's the comments. Oof. Now, I'm guilty of this, and I'll start by putting my hands up. I was at a wedding a couple of years ago. They're actually divorced now, which is very sad. But they spent a lot on the day. And he dug out a violin, right? He hadn't played violin in years. And he serenaded her with this violin. It was a little scratchy, but it was romantic, and we loved it. And I turned to the guy standing next to me who came with his girlfriend. They'd been together like 2 years. And I was like, mate, this is you next, isn't it? You're going to be up there with your violin soon. They broke up the next day. Not because of me, I'm almost certain. But basically, I was friends with him, right? I was friends with him in that we hung out after church. He was, all of that kind of stuff. I got his phone number, catch up every now and again. I didn't know. I wasn't invited into the intricacies of his relationship. What I didn't know is that they had actually gone to couples counseling, that they had been grappling with whether or not they should stay together, that it was a painful thing that had been going on for a couple of months. But then I bulldoze in with my jaunty little encouragement, and actually, I don't know, but that could have caused some pain. And I think that we make those comments thinking that we are being open, that we're being friendly, that we're building relationship without realizing the context that we're blindly throwing those comments into. So, single people here, has any of the men been told, well, why aren't you dating if you're not dating? As if it's sort of a war effort and they're not doing their part, and actually you need to sort of get out there and do it. What about when's your turn? Is it your turn? Have you put yourself out there? Are you on the apps? Have you tried these apps? Have you put yourself on the app? Are you, and you're doing it, and you're doing it not just on a Sunday after, okay, yeah, good. What about, just take this time, just take this time to invest in yourself and become the person that the person you want to date wants to date. It's the worst advice ever, because you don't know who that person is. Don't model yourself on the desires of a fictional person. What does Jesus want you to become? Maybe let's start with that before we start molding ourselves to a fictional mate in the future. My absolute favorite. I just can't believe you're still single. You're amazing. I can't marry me then. I'm only willing to hear that from someone who is down on one knee. Money where your mouth is. That is not helpful. I don't know why I'm single either, Doreen, okay? And I'm not looking to talk to you about it. So, what message are we sending as individuals and as church family? Can we think this through? Because actually, the issue is that, we can laugh about it, but this is painful for people. And we can be a bit cack-handed. And it's an invitation to think through the way that you engage with people around you about something which is a reasonably sensitive topic for some people. And I'm going to take this opportunity just to interject with a little caveat. I believe marriage is good. This is not me insulting married people or saying that it's not something that is worth working towards, I think it is phenomenal, a union of two people where together they can be stronger and build more for the kingdom in a God-anointed or anointed covenant. Absolutely spectacular. Nothing wrong with marriage, but it is not better than being single. When somebody gets married, they exchange the perks and challenges of single life for the perks and challenges of married life. And there are plenty of both in both states. And we need to stop acting like someone will have got there when we finally see them get married, because it's not fair and it's not relevant for everyone. And it is not a prerequisite for full, abundant life. And that is modeled in Jesus, who was not married when he was on this earth. So I'd love us to reevaluate the way that we see it. When it comes to being single, this is the gift of singleness that everyone hopes God kept the receipt for. There are people who are truly called into being single, right? But I don't believe it's something that God sort of boots you through the door into. I don't believe that it's something that you're sort of forced into. I believe that you collaborate with God. And if there is opportunity and if it's something that you want, then God will bless that and you will get married, right? That said, there are people who choose to stay single. And that is a phenomenal decision. Certainly in our culture, where to be single effectively means to be alone, and be lonely. Because we siphon ourselves off into our households and we don't have very open doors. So actually, that is a difficult thing to decide to do for Jesus. And people who make that decision should do it knowing that they will not be alone, that they will not be lonely, that in church family they are surrounded and held, and they have all of the worldly love to complement the Jesus love that they feel and know on this earth, right? Through friendships, through church community, and through many other different places. So, that said, I think it's important to acknowledge that the majority of people who are single, the majority of the people who are single here probably would like to be in a relationship. That's been my experience of speaking to people, that actually lots of people are hoping for a relationship in the future. And at times that can be really fun and really easy and really light, because you're not sort of tied down and financially and, diaries, and you're your own person. You don't have to sort of check in with anyone else. And sometimes it can be really hard because you don't have anyone to check in with. And the same person can swing between those two. There was a single-friendly church survey in 2012, and one of the statements, I read pages and pages of responses to this survey, and one of the statements that really hit me, in the heart, was someone said, I've never heard someone stand at the front of a church on the stage and acknowledge the pain of being single when you're hoping for a relationship. So I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge that. It is incredibly difficult to feel that you've prayed for something for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years maybe, and that you haven't seen an answer to that prayer in the way that you had hoped. There will be people in this room who feel wary, feel disappointed, who don't know where God is in this anymore, who don't know how many more rejections they can take. They don't understand why they're always someone's friend and not their love interest. They wonder if they're ugly. Maybe they're not clever enough, funny enough. Could it be that they're too boring or too nice? Or maybe they're just fat. Maybe they don't fit into the typical church girl thing. Maybe they're too loud, too opinionated, too much, too hard to love. Maybe they don't fit into the typical church guy thing. Maybe they don't run 10K on a Saturday morning. Maybe they're a bit shorter than average. Maybe they stumble over their words and they don't quite have the same confidence in speaking to women that they've seen other people in the church show. Maybe they feel like giving up hope. Maybe they know that God is good, but they just don't feel it anymore. Maybe they feel unheard and unacknowledged, and unanswered. And there'll be people here who did meet someone and felt like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, finally. Be people here who are like, well, this is why it hasn't worked out with anyone before, because now I've finally found that right person, that person God has for me. And then maybe that turns out to be nothing. There will be people here who have been dumped and friend-zoned and ghosted and disappointed over and over again. And I'm so sorry. And some of those people will have been honored and respected within those interactions. But it doesn't mean they don't have to process the pain and disappointment of something not going how they'd hoped. And some people won't have been honored and respected in those interactions. So they've got to deal with the disappointment of something not going as they'd hoped, but also heal from the damage that may have been done by interactions with someone who was not sufficiently careful with their heart. And then they've got to roll back down that hill and look back up it and think, I just can't do this. I just cannot do this anymore. They hate the idea of going on another date with someone new, taking the risk, opening themselves up and being vulnerable. And if that is you, I'm so sorry. It is really painful. And there's nothing anyone can say from a stage to fix it. But I promise you, Jesus can. And that sounds a bit trite to someone who's in that place. But we serve a God who knows every single little thing that is hurting us and who will not leave us and who will stay with us while we process it. And I promise you, he redeems, he can make all things new. There is space for healing with Jesus that will mean that you will never have to feel that pain of that past relationship, that you'll be able to move through it in a way that makes you stronger, but you must hand it over to him in prayer. Honestly say where you're at. He can carry it, he can take it, right? Came across this thing Brene Brown said, because actually Pete Hughes included it in one of his talks. Brene Brown is like a vulnerability speaker in the States. She's big, she's great, she's Christian, but she doesn't specifically speak about faith things. But she said that she thought Jesus and her faith in God would be an epidural, right? So that's like an anesthetic that goes in your back if you're giving birth, and it means you're numb from the waist down. She's like, epidural. I will no longer have to feel this pain. But actually what she said she found was that God was her midwife. She still felt the pain. She still had to go through the pain. But God was there, a safe pair of hands, not going anywhere, saying, I've done this before. I'm not going to leave you. We'll get through this together. You are protected. You are held. You are with an expert at this. And that's the invitation to people who feel that kind of disappointment, that kind of lack of hope. You can push through without God, but my goodness, you will find it easier if you invite him in. So, I'm going to say a few bits and pieces to the people in the room who are single, and then we'll talk about what we as community can do about all of this. That sort of, you're not good enough, you should be thinner, you should have bigger lips or abs or whatever the latest Love Island craze for attractiveness is there. That's a lie. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. God does not make mistakes. Yes, I'm sure that we all have areas of development, character defects that we could work on, right? And you do that in collaboration with God and Jesus and with wise counsel and with accountability partners, not with a view to being more attractive to a potential mate. Good. It sounds like, I think the other thing that it's really important to flag up, right, and it's bad timing because I've just done the whole really sad bit, it gets better from here. But actually, being single does not have to be miserable. Not at all. When I said perks of being single, right, there are many, and actually we can waste away time that we are single worrying about how we're going to get into a different relationship status when really the gifts are abundant. your time, your money, you being able to decide where you're going on holiday, no compromise on the remote. There's so many different things where actually, that is phenomenal, Marriage is really difficult, and you can just turn to anyone here who's married, and they'll tell you that there are times where they're like, I didn't know what I had when I was single. And that doesn't mean that they want to switch it up, right? But it does mean that you'd be wasting something if you don't appreciate the stage that you're in. Okay, this is specifically to women, okay? The fact that there are two single women, oh gosh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? 2 single women to every single man in the church is real. That is statistically accurate. But we don't serve a God who feels pressure in statistics. When he rocks up to the bakery, does he get 5,000 loaves? Absolutely not. He'll take 5. And then 2 fishes, and that's how he feeds 5,000 people. He's not a scarcity God, right? If God wants there to be people to meet, there will be people to meet. Whereas when we sit in this, it's not good enough, there's not enough people, where are all the good men mindset, that's when we really start to feel resentful towards the church. There are amazing men all around. Sometimes it will take some proactivity. It'll take getting out of your comfort zone a little bit, turning up at other churches, social events and things like that. But I promise you, they exist. I've already said this, but marriage really won't solve your problems. And I would invite you to turn to the married person on your left and just get them to list sort of 5 ways in which they found that in the first year of marriage. I promise you they'll be able to. I think so many people are like, oh, but when I get married, that'll be fine. Actually, anything that you're working on as a single person is only going to get exacerbated in the beautiful intimacy of marriage. So work on it now. If taking a break from dating is something that feels really uncomfortable to you, then maybe you should. It's okay to take a break. If you're feeling exhausted, online dating is exhausting. If you're a person who does that and you actually feel like you're just hitting a brick wall with it, it's totally fine to take a break. Also, if you're in a position where you're not physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually healthy enough to withstand rejection, then it's probably not the right time for you to date. And that's really hard. But sometimes I've been in a place where I'm like, oh, I'm feeling really low. I'm going to get myself on the apps. Worst decision ever. Because they're only going to make you feel worse about yourself. It is not a platform that is designed to uplift the true qualities that you have. It is shallow, even in a Christian context. And that's user error. We should be better at using dating apps and things. But actually, if you're in a place where the idea of someone saying, I'm just not that attracted to you, I think we're going to have to call it here, is very painful, then it's okay to take some time before you go into a dating scenario. Lament, the practice of lament is absolutely beautiful, and it's exactly what I was talking about when I said about the Brené Brown, God's with you kind of thing. The difficulty of this hope, of this disappointment, you can invite God into a place of lament. And it's not easy. There's no easy fixes to any of these things. There's no sort of like bam, and then it doesn't hurt anymore. But it is so much easier when you do it with Jesus. If you're a person who has been hurt in previous relationships, there are plenty, far more than there should be, people who really struggle with the idea of allowing vulnerability in because maybe they've been in an abusive relationship, or somebody hasn't honored them, or perhaps they've been a victim of an assault of some kind, that their vulnerability has not been treated with the love and dignity and respect that it should have been, then you should know that to enter into a dating situation is nothing short of heroic. It is incredibly hard to let your guard down and to go into something like that, again, when it has not been treated properly. And actually, if that's the place that you're in, I would really encourage you to speak to church leadership about it. Get the support, talk through where you're at, pray it through. Don't just bulldoze through, because it's okay to take your time. It's okay to be gentle. Ultimately, whether you feel it or not, God is good. Whether you feel it or not, God loves you so much more than anyone that you are going to come across on this earth. And he doesn't need you to believe that for it to be true. So the circumstances remain the same. The only thing that's different is the extent to which you embrace that, the extent to which you walk in it, the extent to which you make that a part of your identity. And that is the invitation. So what can we all do? Right, first point, as church community, there are many things that we can do to show people who are in that place love and welcome them in better. First one is better representation of single people on the PCC. Tick, isn't it nice when you already feel like you're making progress? That's like me when I brush my teeth and then put it on my to-do list, just so I feel like I'm getting somewhere that day. I think we all need an understanding of the fact that just because someone's single doesn't mean that they are working towards a relationship. And that's good. And it may be that they are in the future and they're not right now, or it may be that they've decided they don't want to at all. That has to be respected. If you're not a person who knows the intricacies of somebody's love life, then you're probably not the right person to check in with them about it. And also, do you know what? We need to celebrate milestones that aren't associated with relationship status. Because if you're a person who's chosen to be single, when are you celebrated? You know, you didn't have an engagement party or a wedding. You didn't have an anniversary. You don't have christenings for your kids or anything like that. These are not the only milestones that are worth marking, that are worth celebrating. You know, new houses, moving house, new jobs. Getting a dog. That's a big one, getting a dog. There are so many things that actually people might have been working towards or saving for or honing their skills towards for years and years and years. And we can break out the Schlur and cheese straws for those things too, right? It doesn't have to be a ceremony. It doesn't have to be the front of church. It doesn't have to be holy water. But let's make a fuss of things when people achieve things. Let's make people feel seen and celebrated for their achievements. Hospitality is key, and it's great that as part of this series you've already heard a talk on hospitality, so I feel like I'm possibly preaching to the choir here. But it's so important that the people who are single in your congregation have a place where they feel like family. Psalm 68, verse 6, a father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lonely in families. God sets the lonely in families. There shouldn't be a single person in this church who feels lonely because we are set in families. I live literally just down the road. This is my area. This is where I grew up. I've been here a few times actually, but it never worked out for us. Sorry. But my sister lives 3 roads over, and I've got a key. Can let myself in. I can fall asleep on the sofa. I can grab some food out the fridge. I can microwave the pasta bake from the night before. You know, I can help with the kids or not if I get away with it. You know, and that's family. They don't take my coat. They don't put music on. They haven't tidied up because they know I'm coming. The door's open, and that's fine. And that is hospitality. Cleaning up and serving 3 courses, that's entertainment. And they're both amazing. And oh my gosh, I love the dinner party invitations. But actually, what makes me feel like family is when I put my own dish in the dishwasher. And that's something we can all invite other people into. So, think through who is around you, who is in this community. If there's somebody who is committed to being single, are they held? Are they in a family? Do they have the tangible love and affection and friendship that they need? And if somebody's single for now, do they have the same? Are you hearing them? Are you meeting them where they actually are? Are you taking the time to listen to their experiences that maybe you've forgotten if you got married 20 years ago? Are you reaching out an arm? Is there someone who you could invite to feel more central in this family? Because we really, really want to make sure that nobody here is lonely, regardless of their relationship status.